Okay, so so first thing here is the diagnostic use cases. I don't know what the action was here.
The HTTP2 use cases, we just tweeted about it a couple times and tried to get some community feedback, but it doesn't look like anyone's said anything so far. Not too sure what to do about that.
Do you need a retweet from like the node, like somebody who's got like a ton of followers, or?
We did that.
Yeah, we did that. There's just no response. So maybe there's just not enough people interested in HTTP2 yet.
So what's the next step here? Do we just need to take this off our agenda? Do we need to close this as like, I mean, it looks like it was closed before because nobody was engaged.
Yeah, maybe just close it and just say like nothing actionable right now. You'd look at it again in the future.
Okay. I don't think I have perms to do that. Michael, can you close this one? 21.888 in Node.
Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna say we tweeted to promote, but still no feedback. So closing.
In the meantime, some housekeeping. I think people should write their name in the present section in the agenda.
Yep.
Yes, thank you. Please do that. Okay, next thing is Diagnostics issue 211. This is just best practices guide. We're just talking about some of this, which is that how do we get, can we have some stuff in here around doing leak analysis? I don't have any updates here despite my, best intentions. Someone was on the call last time who wanted to get involved. I don't remember what his name was. Mike, maybe? From Node Source.
Yeah, that's right. There was, and I know Jarish is also interested in contributing to that. So.
Yeah, I talked with him a bit in San Francisco. Yeah, I don't know, man. If Time Ferry comes along, I'll do my best there. I think it'd be great if we get something, and I think if anybody's motivated, please jump in for that. I guess I will just leave that on the agenda for a little while and see how that goes.
Yeah, I think that's worth aspiring to do something there.
Okay, 168. So deep dives. I still owe a deep dive on the context stuff, and I will do my best to get that scheduled. I don't know that there's any other ones here that we were thinking about doing. Okay, the expectations about tiers of support from diagnostic tools and VMs. I think the PR went in for this one, right, Michael?
Yep, the PR landed. I guess the question would be, do we need to keep this open as a, like, okay, what are the next steps? Because we now need to sort of work on updating the table so that there's actually some which do have some testing, or like, I guess our question might be, do we have some priorities of ones that we think we should try and move up the tiers?
Well, are the stuff that are like the in the supported tier, do they need tests? What are the next actions here?
Well, basically, ideally, right now we have a whole bunch of things that are not yet classified. What we'd like to have is tools that we think are important, move up the tiers, and some of that will require, just agreement that we're going to, do things differently for these, and the others require us actually putting in tests and stuff like that. So for example, node report. I am working with Jarish, and I'm hoping that we'll see a PR to pull that into core.
There's a PR.
It's open already.
Was it open recently?
Yeah, and it's just like
okay,
morning or something like that.
Okay, so yeah, so I think that would be the way I'd push on that one. In terms of some of the others, I think we should like choose, one or two as a team that we think we should champion, and then figure out, we've got the tiers. It's like, okay, so if it's unclassified, what do we have to do to actually make it move up from unclassified to one of the upper tiers?
So is there something that's like a good first start here? Is node report classified as something that in one of these?
They're all not yet classified ones, right?
They're all not yet classified.
Yeah.
And so this PR that's opening node report should have something that moves that up. Is that right?
Well, if we integrate that into core, then as part of that, if we get tests in, we can basically say, it's got regular testing in the node CI, and we could then make the case to it, at least move it up to 3, and we can have the discussions around 2 and 1. Like, we've got a bunch of requirements, so we'd have to go through and say, okay, have we met all those requirements, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some of them are like the tool must be heavily dependent upon, so we'd have to make the arguments, but the first one would be like, okay, tier 3, we're going to run it at least nightly. So it was about, I think it's about people finding the tool that they're most concerned about, and then helping to champion and moving it up the list.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Peter, Mateus, I don't know if you guys have interest in any of like CPU profiler or the heap profiler, or any of those things.
Well,
getting support on. I thought you guys were interested in some of those. Isn't that the case?
Yes. We are interested in the new code event listener API. That's for sure. We are already using it in production. And we are experimenting with this new heap sample profiler. So I would say these two are important for us, probably.
Right. So the next steps on those would be to get testing, I think, in the
for the code event listener API, we already have tests. So I am not sure that is there anything that's missing. It's more like we just need to classify it.
Yeah, so that one we just need to move up to 3, right? And it's okay because there's already nightly testing. There you go.
So code event move up. We already have tests.
So yeah, I think just opening a PR to move that one up would make sense.
Okay.
Any other ones that we need to have that can get moved up easily, or that someone's interested in driving?
So Jarish and I will be looking at node report, so we'll see what we can do on that front.
Okay. Yeah, I say just leave this open with sort of, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, we can basically leave it open and just as a reminder each meeting. This works fine.
Okay. Okay, async hooks number 124. I don't know if anybody has an update here. We had an update last time that, the perf issues need to kind of get resolved. There's still some, I think, ongoing questions about correctness, or what's the right way to think about this.
There's been some attempts at trying to expose the resource in each of the hooks or through like a current resource API, in hopes that it would remove the need for the destroy hook, because the destroy hook kind of sucks with promises. But yeah, nothing.
Yeah, that seems stalled, and it seems like there's some pushback. And if I remember correctly, the pushback is valid, or it makes sense. I think whenever I read it, I can't remember what it was offhand. I don't know that that's going to get done. I think the last time Yang was on the call, he said that, you know, there's still, like, they had written a doc. There's a number of things that they had proposed, which are still TBD to implement. Sounds like though there's no update here.
Yeah,
I think the thing was that the resource might be shared in certain circumstances, so you couldn't use that to store things on.
Yes, specifically HTTP parser is shared.
Okay. Okay. So number 107, async context formalization. I've made zero progress on that. So apologies there. We have a deck. I need to update the deck with some stuff, and once we do that, I'll get that scheduled for a deep dive. And then I think it'll be a question of, like, what are the next steps there, if that model seems to make sense, and how do we take it forward. So we'll see how that shakes out over the next, I don't know, month maybe. I think what we were shooting for was that if it makes sense and we have the right level of, you know, at least support, that there's we would get it as a TC39 proposal, and we would do that for the September meeting. I don't know that that's going to get done, given that it's September 5th. I don't know when the meeting is for TC39 this month, but it's on our radar. It's not at the top of the stack. So, okay, number 84. This is the trace event stuff. I don't know what this is, kind of lingering for a long time, but I thought the last thing here was that, Michael, you were going to ping James about this.
Yeah, I did. I don't think I got any response.
Okay.
I'm sure I didn't. I sent him an email saying, hey, could we have an update? Didn't get any response. I said, yeah, and as I remember, I said, could either give us an update or come to the meeting. I guess I could do that again.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of these things, I think, like, there's a bunch of checkboxes here, and I think some of them are, like, can go away, and I think some of them need to be updated. Like, for example, I think a couple weeks ago, Yang was talking about the trace event buffer implementation that's being used currently inside a node is kind of like a, you know, a toy implementation.
Right.
Why there's a number of stability issues. I don't know where that's being tracked. That what we need to do is get to a solid implementation. I would expect that would get tracked here. I think the JavaScript API stuff is done. Like, I think this thing is just rotting. Like, it doesn't, this checklist doesn't accurately reflect.
Yeah, agreed. Maybe Ellie, I mean, you were pretty involved in getting the trace events in. Does that match your understanding that that one is something we need to find a replacement for?
So actually, I've been working on it off and on. I think the summary that was mentioned is fairly accurate. The JavaScript API is there, but there's some implementation rough edges, especially around the buffer and how the code is shared between V8 and Node. And then there have been some bugs that actually I've been fixing in V8, and it's just a long process to get them backported all the way to Node. So I think the issue is fairly out of date. That's totally true, and it's partially lack of time for me that I have available for this, and also James probably. So maybe I can spend some energy trying to clean things up and making the status more up to date. There's a second thing I've been discussing with the V8 team, and which is right now the way the implementation is shared between V8 and Node. So Node has a subclass. It overrides some of the functionality in V8. But the process for fixing a bug is very complicated because first you have to fix it in a superclass, and then implement some related fixes in subclass. I think it would be a lot better if all the tracing code was a separate library, and it were the embedder's responsibility to provide this library to V8, as opposed to the V8 having a superclass that the embedder subclasses. And actually, there's a project, and the Chrome is already well underway implementing this. They are working on a project called Perfetto. I'll write the name in chat. And this is something that Chrome is using, and also Android is starting to use. So I think, so in the short term, I think there are some bug fixes that we need to put in so that the implementation gets functional enough to be useful. It's already useful, just that there's some rough edges. The public API shouldn't change, but I think we should work with the V8 team to get them moved over to this library that we can just use and provide to V8, as opposed to like a complicated build system that we currently have. I can write this up in the issue.
Okay. Yeah, maybe that's the best next step.
So is the goal then that Node would take a dependency on Perfetto?
That's right.
And Perfetto is the sort of the implementation that's going to that's like a production quality ring buffer for storage of these events wherever they're emitted from. Is that right?
Right. It's the same thing, but as a separate library. Same thing from a user interface point of view. The macros are the same, so it's designed to be a replacement of the tracing mechanism in Chrome.
Okay.
Yeah, I would encourage people to take a look at Perfetto and let me know if you have any thoughts or comments on this.
Okay, I think that was everything on the agenda, right?
I did type in one extra thing. I was thinking that Matthias in one of the issues had mentioned that he's looking at an alternative for generating the metadata used by LLDB. Or sorry, LLNode, but without spending a bit of time, it wasn't sort of, it was, I saw at least one comment that made it sound like it wasn't obvious to somebody else and it wasn't obvious to me. So I just wondered if maybe him spending a few minutes giving us a quick overview would be useful.
So I'm trying to find a new way to analyze core dumps on Node, because today both LLNode and MDB basically have to re-implement some of the V8 internals to be able to inspect core dumps. And this is kind of hard, and it also makes both tools very hard to maintain. For example, at the past 4 or 5 V8 upgrades, LLNode broke, and we had to go through commits from V8 and try to find out what changed and what we had to change on LLNode. This is a very time-consuming process, and since V8 already knows how to navigate the heap, I'm trying to find a way that V8 can help the debugger to navigate it instead of re-implementing all the methods. The first prototype I developed is not usable. has a huge performance impact. But Yang suggested another approach, which I'm going to try, and we are going to see if it works.
So what does that do different? Like, how does that? Do you have like the very short overview of how that other approach works?
So the Coherent approach, it looks at the binary of Node to get the offset of JavaScript objects where the properties are stored in a JavaScript object, and then it has to calculate this offset with the object address and look at the values. The difference with the new approach is that instead of having to recalculate everything, the tool could call an API on V8, and V8 would do these calculations for us. So if V8 changes something internally, we don't have to find out what changed and update on the tool.
Right. So there'd basically be an API that says, here's my pointer to my object, give me X from it, or give me a property from it.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I mean, I saw there was some comments in the issue. I think we had started a discussion at one point with the V8 team on that front. But maybe if you can actually implement it, they might then look at it and say, yeah, okay, we can keep this going.
Yeah, I'm also trying to find something that's useful for the V8 team, because I had to code on V8 sometimes, and the debugging tools for working with V8 internals are not great. I mean, you have to use LLDB, but then there are a lot of JIT code, and basically all objects are calculated by offset and not using C++ classes. So LLDB doesn't know how to look at those objects. So if we can improve the V8 team experience on the debugging platform, I think it would be really great.
Yeah, I'm surprised that there's not a sort of a debugger plugin that's kind of maintained with each, V8 build, right? Such that when, something changes on the object layout or whatever it is, the debugger plugin is updated to sort of reflect those changes, and people could use a debugger, right?
It's a lot of work. We've done that for Java, and it takes some interesting tooling and stuff to just generate structures. And even if you can automatically generate a lot of the structures from the code, you're still left with, there's usually more to than just the structures. There's like algorithms you have to understand as well for how to walk between structures and stuff and how to make sense. And those you often end up having to have duplicate code for.
Sure, but yeah, I guess I'm just surprised that, I guess if you're on the V8 team, what are you doing to debug stuff? Right?
You're right. It's hard without it, but it also is a lot of work to do it. So
I remember someone, I think it was during the Diagnostics Summit, mentioned that debugging V8 sometimes is debugging by feeling or something like that.
So it's debugging by failing?
By feeling. By feeling.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, I don't have feelings, but yeah. Interesting.
But okay, that's the sort of level of what I want to understand is like, okay, the concept. And it sounds like if it's something that, yeah, if it ends up being useful for the V8 as well, it might help in terms of keeping it maintained.
I would expect that. I don't know, maybe I don't know. I feel like I'm either not understanding something or, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I'm surprised that there's not some sort of debug capability, sort of built in, right? Okay. Is that everything? Is there anything else, anyone? All right. That's it. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.